It was a rainy Sunday afternoon in Enugu when Amaka first met Desmond. She was juggling an umbrella and 2 overloaded shopping bags outside a crowded supermarket when a soft-spoken man stepped forward and offered to help. There was something gentle about him, nothing loud or flashy. Just a quiet kind of presence that made her feel seen. As they walked toward her car, their conversation flowed effortlessly. Before leaving, he smiled and asked, "Do you believe people meet for a reason?" Amaka didn't answer. She just smiled and drove off, unaware that this stranger would shape the next 5 years of her life. Within 2 weeks, they were inseparable. Desmond was driven, reserved, and always calculating his next step. Amaka, the romantic, spent her evenings scribbling poems and dreams into her journal. He admired her creativity, or at least claimed he did. He told her he loved her after just 4 weeks. She said it back a few days later. It felt natural, easy. They went on weekend getaways, shared silly videos, and spoke of the future like it was already written. But even in those golden days, there were small imbalances, moments where Amaka gave more, reached more, hoped more. She felt it but brushed it off, not wanting to seem needy or ruin what felt good. She believed she was being patient, understanding. But some loves come with shadows you don't notice until it's too late. It began with a job offer. Desmond had been chasing new opportunities for months, claiming he needed a bigger stage. Amaka supported him wholeheartedly, refining his resume, running mock interviews, and staying up late to listen to him rehearse. When he finally landed an offer from a prestigious consulting firm in Lagos, she expected to celebrate. Instead, he delivered the news casually one morning while pouring cereal. "I'm flying out this weekend. Training starts Monday," he said, as though discussing the weather. There was no conversation about their relationship, no plans on how they'd navigate the distance, just a statement of fact. When she asked if they could talk about it, he replied, "Let's discuss after I settle in. I need to focus." So that Sunday, Amaka stood alone at the airport, watching him disappear behind a glass wall. He didn't look back. He didn't wave. For weeks, she told herself it was just an adjustment phase. That the calls would return, the closeness would return, he would return. But the nightly calls grew scarce. His texts shorter. Her "I miss you"s were met with dry responses or delayed emojis. Then, during one of their late-night video calls, she noticed something, a second wine glass in the background. A brief shadow moved across the wall. Desmond shifted, tilting the camera without explanation. Amaka didn't ask questions. Not yet. But in her chest, something sank. It was the kind of shift you feel, even before the truth comes out. The call came on a Wednesday night, around 10:47 p.m., just as Amaka was about to sleep. Desmond's name flashed across the screen, and her heart jumped. He rarely called that late anymore. She picked up quickly, her voice soft. "Hey, babe." But the voice that responded wasn't Desmond's. "Sorry, is this Amaka?" A woman's voice. Calm, polite, chilling. Amaka sat up. "Yes, who is this?" The woman hesitated. "I didn't mean to go through his phone. I saw your name, and I had to know." Amaka's chest tightened. "Know what?" The pause on the other end felt like a lifetime. Then the woman spoke again, voice trembling this time. "I've been seeing Desmond for almost 7 months. He told me he was single." Amaka's mouth went dry. The woman continued, as if rushing before courage failed her. "I saw some messages. Your pictures. He said you were just a phase. Someone he used to care about." Used to. Amaka's mind raced. 7 months. That overlapped everything. All the time he said he was too busy. The missed calls. The sudden Lagos job. "I thought you deserved to know," the woman said finally. "He's asleep right now. He doesn't know I called." Then the line went dead. Amaka sat in the dark, her phone still in her hand, heart pounding like war drums. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the ceiling, knowing without doubt that this was the moment everything changed. And yet, she still hadn't decided what to do. For the next 2 days, Amaka said nothing. She didn't call, didn't message. She went about her day like a machine, on autopilot. She ate bland meals, stared through people, and smiled at the right times, but inside her, something had gone disturbingly quiet. That night, she sat on her bed, scrolling through old photos. Desmond holding her hand at Elagushi Beach, Desmond laughing in their kitchen, Desmond resting his head on her shoulder on that rainy trip to Nsuka. Everything looked perfect. But now, all she could do was scan the images for clues. Was there always a distance in his eyes? Did he ever really look at her, or just through her? She started typing a message more than once. You lied to me. Then deleted it. I know everything. Deleted again. Why? And then nothing. Instead, she archived his chat. No dramatic block. No final call. She realized she didn't want him to see her hurting. He didn't deserve to witness it. So her goodbye was quiet. A decision, not a discussion. She deleted his contact the way someone removes a song from a playlist, not out of rage, but because the lyrics no longer made sense. Outside, thunder rolled across the night sky, and Amaka sat in the dark, listening. Not crying. Not raging. Just listening. To the sound of something leaving her for good. It was a Saturday afternoon at Chioma's bridal shower. Bright music, soft drinks, too many pink balloons. Amaka hadn't wanted to go, but she didn't want to answer questions about why she stayed away either. The girls hadn't seen her in weeks. She wore her best smile, nodded through small talk, and laughed at the right jokes. But beneath her laughter was a tightening in her chest. Then the question came, light as a feather, sharp as a blade. So, how's Desmond adjusting to Lagos? Nkechi asked, leaning in with the kind of smile that always meant more than it gave away. Amaka froze just slightly. It was barely noticeable, except to Ife, who had known her since secondary school. Amaka sipped her drink, forcing a shrug. He's busy. You know how Lagos life is. Ife's eyes narrowed. But he's still calling, right? I mean, y'all were talking marriage not long ago. Amaka nodded, her throat tight. Yeah, sometimes. He's just been focused lately. A lie. Not a big one. But enough to burn her tongue as she said it. She hated this feeling, this quiet pretending. She was the one who used to talk about their future with pride. Now, she couldn't even say his name without choking on shame. After a while, she excused herself and walked to the balcony. The music faded behind her. She stood there, watching the sky turn golden over Enugu, her phone clenched in her hand, not because she expected a message from him, but because she hated how badly she still hoped one might come. It was almost midnight when her phone buzzed. The screen lit up. Desmond. Amaka stared at it for a moment. Her thumb hovered over the green button, unsure if she wanted answers or silence. In the end, she picked up, but said nothing. Amaka, his voice came through, calm, too calm. I know it's late. I just wanted to check on you. Check on her. She waited, letting the silence stretch. He didn't seem in a rush to explain anything. No apology. No urgency. Just a soft concern like someone asking if the rain had touched her window. I've been busy, he added. Work's been crazy. Amaka finally spoke, her voice controlled. You've been busy for 3 months. He paused. I know. I should have reached out more. There it was again, the should've. The passive regrets. The soft excuses. Is there someone else? She asked suddenly, her tone flat. Not pleading. Not accusing. Just tired. He hesitated. It was brief, but it was there. Amaka, things got complicated. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't plan any of this. She felt the floor tilt under her feet. No one ever does, she whispered. I still care about you, he said, as if that line could erase everything. She ended the call without another word. And for the first time, she didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because something inside her had gone quiet. Not dead. Just done. 2 weeks passed after that call. No messages. No missed calls. Just silence. Amaka wasn't sure which was worse, his voice that night, or the vacuum it left behind. She stopped checking her phone at night. Stopped replaying old voice notes. But she hadn't deleted them either. That was the strange part. She didn't want to hear his voice again, yet she couldn't bring herself to erase the proof that he once cared. Closure never came when you asked for it. It came on ordinary days. And hers arrived at the bank. She had gone in to fix a card issue. A long queue had formed, so she waited outside, scrolling aimlessly. That's when she saw him. Desmond. Across the road. Standing beside a silver SUV. Wearing a crisp shirt. And laughing, with her. The same woman who had called that night. They looked comfortable. Familiar. Desmond opened the car door for her like a gentleman in love. Amaka watched the way his hand lingered on the woman's back as she climbed in. They drove off, unaware that Amaka had seen. She didn't run. Didn't flinch. She just sat there, blinking at the space where they had stood, like someone watching a final scene in a film she didn't audition for. And right there, under the sun, with no dramatic music, no confrontation, no goodbye, Amaka got her closure. It didn't come in words. It came in witnessing the truth. It was Sunday. Church had ended. The stew was still simmering in the kitchen when Mama called Amaka to sit on the veranda. "You've been quiet lately," her mother said gently, adjusting her headscarf. "Even your eyes are tired. Are you sleeping at all?" Amaka hesitated, then gave a small nod. "I'm okay, Mama." But the words didn't hold. Mama reached for her hand. "Is it Desmond?" Just hearing his name made Amaka's throat tighten. Her mother had always liked him. Called him Onyoma, a good man. Said he had serious eyes and calm speech, like a man planning a home. Amaka looked away. "He's not coming back." Mama didn't react immediately. She just sat there, listening, waiting. Amaka spoke slowly, the words rolling out like fragile glass. About the distance, the silence, the late-night call, the woman. "I stayed," Amaka whispered, "because I believed in what we were building. I thought I was just being patient, but I was the only one waiting." Her mother sighed, deep and old. "My daughter," she said, "sometimes we confuse waiting with hoping. But hope is not a strategy. And love is not a one-person job." Tears stung Amaka's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Mama squeezed her hand. "You didn't fail. You loved well. That's not weakness. That's courage." For the first time in weeks, Amaka exhaled, fully. Not because it no longer hurt, but because she finally allowed herself to grieve without guilt. Moving on wasn't loud. There was no dramatic haircut. No wild nights out. No sudden glow-up montage like in the movies. Just small, unnoticed shifts. Amaka started walking in the evenings again. Long, quiet walks where the wind whispered things she didn't know how to say out loud. She rearranged her bookshelves. Unfollowed Desmond's friends on social media. Took down the framed photo of them at Zuma Rock. But even as she let go, she couldn't pretend it didn't hurt. Her friends kept saying, "You're stronger now," as if healing came with a certificate. But most days, she didn't feel strong. She just felt empty. People asked if she was dating again. She smiled and shook her head. What she didn't say was, "I'm still unlearning the shape of a man who never made room for me." One afternoon, at a cafe, she saw a couple laughing at the corner table, hands intertwined, eyes locked like the world had narrowed down to just them. And for the briefest moment, it hit her like a wave. She missed that. Not Desmond. Not the lies. But the feeling of being chosen. Held. Believed in. That was what she had waited for all along. Not a man. Not Desmond. Just love. The real kind. And maybe, just maybe, it hadn't passed her by. Maybe it was still out there. Quiet. Waiting. Just like she had once waited. It had been months since Amaka last heard from him. No calls. No messages. No accidental run-ins. She had settled into a quiet rhythm, still healing, still learning how to live with questions that would never be answered. Then her birthday came. She had told herself not to expect anything. She had muted his name in her mind, deleted the memories she could, and dulled the rest. But still, when her phone buzzed that morning and his name appeared, her hands trembled. Happy birthday, Amaka. I hope you're smiling today. I still think of you sometimes. 12 words. Not much. But they broke something open. She stared at the message for a long time, heart racing, emotions stirring like a storm held underwater. 100 replies ran through her mind. Why now? You don't get to still think of me. This doesn't fix anything. But in the end, she typed nothing. Not because she didn't have words, but because she finally realized his didn't matter. That message wasn't love. It wasn't remorse. It was nostalgia dressed in convenience, a flicker from someone who had chosen someone else, but still wanted to be remembered kindly. Amaka locked her phone and looked out her window at the morning light falling across her desk. Her birthday was hers. She didn't need old ghosts dragging shadows across her peace. And that message. It changed absolutely nothing. It had been a long day, rainy, quiet, and slow. Amaka had spent most of it indoors, reading, journaling, and sipping ginger tea. She went to bed early, her heart finally light, her spirit not weighed down by the usual ache. But dreams don't always respect healing. That night, he came to her, in a dream so vivid it felt real. Desmond was standing in her old kitchen, cooking something that smelled like jollof rice and laughter. He turned to her, smiled the way he used to, and said, "You know I never stopped loving you, right?" She didn't respond. He walked closer, took her hand, and whispered, "We just got lost." She felt her chest tighten, the way it used to when his fingers brushed hers. For a moment, she forgot the lies, the silence, the shadow of another woman. But then, she looked at his eyes. And something was missing. That warmth that used to wrap around her. Gone. What remained was a version of him that looked right but felt hollow. A shell of a memory dressed as comfort. She pulled her hand away and whispered, "You never loved me enough to stay." He opened his mouth, but the dream dissolved. Amaka woke up sweating, heart pounding, the darkness around her suddenly unfamiliar. She lay still, the echo of his voice still ringing in her ears. But this time, when the tears came, they didn't break her. They baptized her. It started with an Instagram story. A random afternoon scroll. Nothing unusual. Until she saw it, Desmond's profile, highlighted in the corner like a blinking temptation. He had posted for the first time in weeks. Curiosity won. She tapped. There he was, shirt crisp, smiling, standing in front of a luxury car, captured by someone clearly not holding just the camera. The caption read, "New chapter. New energy." Amaka scoffed. New chapter? The irony wasn't lost on her. He had left behind chapters like her without ever finishing them. No closure. No reflection. Just skipping pages. She put down her phone and went about her day. But the image clung to her thoughts like cobwebs. By evening, she found herself staring at his name in her inbox. The old thread was still there, filled with late-night check-ins, silly memes, and shared dreams. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. What would she even say? Hope the new chapter treats you better than you treated me? Glad to know you're doing great without the one who held you down? She typed, and deleted. Typed again, paused. Then she stopped. Not because she had run out of words, but because, deep down, she realized something important. She didn't need him to hear her anymore. Healing wasn't proving a point. It was learning to keep your peace even when the silence screamed. She locked her phone and went for a walk. And this time, the air felt lighter. It was supposed to be a normal Thursday. Amaka had just finished a mentoring session with a group of young writers at a community center. She felt lighter, stronger, finally in a season where her voice was being used for purpose, not for begging to be heard. She stopped by the book cafe near the roundabout to pick up a new novel. That's where it happened. She heard his voice before she saw him. "You still take 3 sugars in your coffee, yeah?" Her body froze. She turned slowly. Desmond, standing by the counter, talking to the barista like no time had passed. His voice had the same rhythm, the same casual charm. But now, it sounded hollow to her. He spotted her. Their eyes met. There was a moment, longer than necessary, where everything paused. The noise, the movement, even the clinking of mugs felt distant. He smiled. "Amaka, wow." She didn't smile back. He walked over. "I've been meaning to reach out. Didn't know you still came here." "Not everything about me disappeared with you," she replied, calmly. Desmond chuckled nervously. "You look different. Stronger." "I am," she said. He nodded, unsure of what to say next. "Maybe we could talk, catch up?" But Amaka wasn't there for old loops. She wasn't standing in that cafe for closure. She looked at him, really looked, and saw a man searching for something he had walked away from. "No need," she said gently. "I've already turned the page." And with that, she left, leaving him in the past where he now belonged. It started as a late-night impulse. Amaka had just returned from a poetry event, her heart full, her spirit grounded. But when she got into bed, the memories crept in. The cafe, the stare, the way Desmond had said her name like it still belonged to him. So she opened her laptop. No title. No greeting. Just raw words. "Desmond. There was a time I would have done anything to hear your voice again. But now, I've learned that some echoes only keep you stuck in rooms you've outgrown. You told me once that love is about timing. Maybe you were right. Because I was ready, and you were just available. I waited for you. Waited for your honesty, your effort, your clarity. But all I ever got was silence dressed as space, and confusion dressed as busy. The worst part. I don't even hate you. I just finally see you. And that's enough." She stared at the screen for a while. Then, instead of sending it, she saved it as a draft and closed the laptop. The letter wasn't for him. It was for her. A soft release. A quiet goodbye. Not the kind screamed into a phone or typed in anger, but the kind you whisper into your own soul when you're finally, truly free. It happened on a Thursday. Amaka had been invited to speak at a creative writing workshop downtown. She wore a simple mustard dress, hair pulled back, no intention of impressing anyone. Just herself. After her session, a few attendees stayed behind to ask questions. Among them was a man, tall, calm, with a notebook full of messy handwriting and thoughtful eyes. He waited until the others had left. "I liked what you said about words choosing us before we choose them," he said. "You said it like someone who knows." Amaka smiled. "Maybe I do." He introduced himself. Tund. A screenwriter from Abadan, visiting Enugu for a short residency. They spoke for a few minutes. Books, favorite authors, the beauty of quiet spaces. Then, just before leaving, he said something that caught her off guard. "You have a very honest smile. Not everyone does." It was such a simple sentence. But it lingered. Amaka walked home that evening thinking about it, not because it made her heart race, but because it didn't. It made her feel seen, not wanted, not chased, just noticed. She didn't rush to label it, didn't imagine a future. But she didn't brush it off either. Sometimes, the most powerful beginnings don't come with fireworks. Sometimes, they come with a sentence that holds no agenda, just sincerity. And for the first time in a long time, Amaka allowed herself to feel curious again. They met again the following week. Tund had sent a simple message: "No pressure, but if you ever want to grab a coffee and talk about Toni Morrison, I'm around." Amaka stared at the text for 10 minutes before replying. "Sure. Saturday works." It wasn't a date, not officially. She told herself that as she picked her outfit. Something simple, comfortable, no need to impress. They met at a quiet cafe tucked into a bookshop she used to visit before everything in her life turned upside down. Tund was already seated when she arrived, flipping through a paperback with a coffee he hadn't touched. He stood when he saw her, small gesture, but one she hadn't seen in a long time. Their conversation was easy. No probing. No fake charm. He didn't ask about her past. Didn't talk about himself like a resume. He just listened. Really listened. They spoke about books, grief, growth, how hard it is to trust your own heart again after it's been mishandled. At one point, Amaka caught herself laughing, an unguarded, belly-deep laugh she hadn't heard from herself in ages. Tund smiled at the sound, but didn't interrupt it. There were no grand gestures. No fireworks. Just warmth. A quiet kind of safety. And for once, Amaka didn't feel like she was being pulled into something. She felt like she was walking towards something, with both eyes open. It was 9:04 p.m. on a calm Wednesday evening. Amaka had just gotten home from an open mic night where Tund read a short piece that made everyone laugh and sigh in the same breath. They had walked part way home together, shoulders brushing, but no rush, no pressure. Just comfort. She was humming as she kicked off her shoes, when her phone buzzed. Desmond. Again. Her breath didn't hitch. Her chest didn't tighten. She didn't freeze or hesitate. She simply opened the message. "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I still think about us. A lot. I was stupid. I lost something real. I see that now." Amaka read it once. Then again. But this time, it felt like reading someone else's story. One she used to cry over but no longer lived in. There was a time when that message would have unraveled her. When she would have responded at midnight with shaking hands and unanswered hope. But not anymore. She didn't reply. She didn't delete it either. She just let it sit there, like a chapter she had already closed. She walked to her mirror, looked at her own reflection. And for the first time, she didn't wonder how she looked through Desmond's eyes. She only saw herself. Whole. Healing. And no longer waiting. It was during a panel discussion on storytelling and vulnerability. Amaka had been invited to speak, her first time sharing parts of her personal journey with a room full of strangers. Not the heartbreak itself, but the healing. The long walk back to herself. The event was held at a cultural center in Enugu. Afterward, people lined up to greet her, thank her, ask questions. Then she saw him. Desmond. He stood at the back, half in shadow, hands in his pockets, watching her the way people watch flames, drawn to it, but unsure if it will burn them. When the room cleared, he walked over. His voice was softer than she remembered. "I didn't know you were speaking here. I didn't know you still lived in Enugu," she replied, cool but kind. "I wanted to come say thank you," he said, "for not letting what I did to you define who you became." She studied him for a moment. He looked older, not in age, but in weight. The kind people carry inside when they finally understand the cost of their choices. "I didn't become in spite of you," she said quietly. "I became because I finally stopped waiting for you." Desmond nodded slowly. There was no argument in him. No defense. Just silence. She didn't offer forgiveness. Didn't offer bitterness either. She simply said, "Take care of yourself," and walked away. And in that moment, she felt something lift. Not him. The last piece of him. Tund never rushed her. Even when he liked her, he didn't crowd her. Even when he wanted to hold her hand, he waited until she reached for his. That was what made it different. They had been talking more, spending quiet evenings at bookstores, sipping tea while trading stories about their childhoods, their heartbreaks, their dreams. Nothing heavy. Nothing rushed. Just two people learning how to sit in silence without fear. One night, as they walked under the orange glow of street lamps, Tun stopped suddenly. "I don't want to say this because I feel like I have to," he began, voice steady. "I want to say it because I've meant it for a while now, and I think you're ready to hear it." Amaka looked up at him. "I love you," he said. "Not the version of you that's always strong or poetic or guarded. I love the you that pauses when she's afraid. The you that laughs unexpectedly. The you that doesn't know she's healed, but walks like she has anyway." Amaka stood still. Not because she was scared, but because this time, love didn't feel like a wave threatening to drown her. It felt like a river inviting her to float. She didn't say it back immediately, but she took his hand, held it, let it linger. And for her, that was more powerful than any confession. It wasn't about moving on anymore. It was about moving in the right direction, with the right heart.